In a bustling city, an elderly black veteran is brutally robbed, his cherished war medals stolen. But what's truly shocking isn't the crime. It's the crowd of bystanders who laugh, film, and walk away. Witness the raw footage that exposes a hidden prejudice, igniting a national outcry and revealing the true hero among us. Dusk was beginning to bleed across the sky in Chicago, painting the towering skyscrapers in hues of bruised purple and fiery orange. The city, a relentless beast of concrete and glass, exhaled a weary sigh as the workday churned to an end. Streams of people, a hurried river of suits, hoodies, and backpacks, flowed down the sidewalks, their faces set in determined masks of exhaustion or anticipation. Cell phones glowed like tiny beacons in the fading light, their screens capturing every fragment of attention, disconnecting individuals even as they moved in a tightly packed mass. Everyone seemed busy, rushing past each other in a blur of motion, their gazes fixed firmly on their destinations, their worlds contained within their own personal bubbles. On a weathered park bench, nestled slightly away from the main thoroughfare, sat James Carter. He was a man pushing 80, his dark skin a map of a long life, his features softened by time but still retaining a quiet strength. He wore a faded, olive green jacket, its fabric softened by countless washes and years of wear, hinting at a past service. A well-worn canvas hat, its brim slightly askew, covered his sparse white hair. Tucked discreetly onto its side, a tiny, tarnished U.S. Army veteran pin glinted faintly in the dwindling light, a subtle, almost invisible testament to a lifetime of duty. Beside him, resting on the worn wooden slats of the bench, lay a frayed canvas bag. It looked unremarkable, the kind of bag one might carry daily essentials in. Peeking out from its slightly open top, one could just glimpse the crinkled edge of a plastic-wrapped sandwich and, more significantly, the corner of an old, dark wooden box. Within that box lay the tangible remnants of a lifetime of military service, a collection of Army medals, each a silent narrative of courage, sacrifice, and harrowing experiences. James sat still, his gaze fixed on the relentless flow of traffic, the endless stream of cars hurtling past. He watched the faces of the people hurrying by, each a fleeting glimpse of a world that seemed to have no space for him. No one met his eyes. No one paused. No one seemed to notice the quiet dignity emanating from his worn frame. They were utterly unaware that the old man on the bench had once, decades ago, carried the very flag they still proudly displayed, fought for the very freedoms they now enjoyed with such casual indifference. He was a silent sentinel, a forgotten guardian in a city too engrossed in its own hurried pace to acknowledge the history breathing quietly beside them. The peaceful twilight scene was shattered by the creeping shadow of menace. A young man, his arms a canvas of intricate tattoos, began to loiter around James Carter's bench. He was tall, lean, and moved with a restless energy, his eyes, sharp and predatory, constantly scanning the surroundings. He circled once, then twice, feigning casualness, before finally slouching down onto the opposite end of James's bench. He tapped his worn sneakers against the concrete, a rhythmic, irritating sound, and then leaned forward. "Got a light, old man?" he mumbled, his voice raspy, his eyes darting to James's face. James, who didn't smoke, simply shook his head gently. The young man's lips then stretched into a thin, unsettling smile, a predatory gleam in his eyes as he assessed the old veteran. James was old, frail, and seemingly alone, an easy target. In a lightning-fast movement that belied the thief's previous casual demeanor, he lunged. His hand shot out, not asking, but snatching the canvas bag from beside James with brutal force. James, startled and unprepared, instinctively tried to hold on, but the thief's strength was overwhelming. With a sickeningly casual ease, the assailant delivered a vicious kick to James's chest. The force of the blow sent the old man flying backward off the bench, his head snapping back as it struck the hard concrete. A sharp, searing pain exploded behind his eyes. A thin red gash bloomed on his forehead, stark against his dark skin, a fresh wound bleeding onto the unforgiving pavement. "Help me! Help! A thief!" James choked out, his voice a frail whisper, barely audible above the city's din. His words were a desperate plea, a cry for assistance from the very people he had once sworn to protect. But the bustling crowd, which had been rushing past, only paused. Like a sudden, morbid fascination, a few people stopped their hurried walks. Their cell phones, which moments ago had been used for personal calls and social media, were now raised, not to call for help, but to record. A few onlookers even snickered, their voices carrying the cold, casual cruelty of detached observation. Probably just some beggar getting robbed. It happens all the time. One person mumbled, a shrug of indifference in their tone. Another voice, colder still, chimed in, just a black guy. Why bother helping? You'll just get involved in trouble yourself. Their words, raw and unfiltered, cut deeper than the thief's kick, leaving a profound sense of abandonment and betrayal. The thief, having secured his loot, didn't waste a second. He melted away into a nearby dark alley, vanishing as quickly as he had appeared, swallowed by the labyrinthine shadows of the city. James Carter lay motionless on the cold pavement beside the empty bench, a figure of forgotten heroism, utterly vulnerable and utterly alone. No one gave chase. No one attempted to stop the assailant. The crowd simply watched, their phones still raised, silent witnesses to a public act of violence. Their collective indifference a chilling echo in the encroaching twilight. The twilight deepened, casting long, eerie shadows over the street where James Carter lay. The vibrant pulse of the city, which had felt so indifferent just moments before, now seemed to mock his stillness. His cry for help, choked and desperate, had dissolved into the urban cacophony, unheard by a crowd too engrossed in their own lives or too cowardly to intervene. He lay there, his head throbbing, the fresh gash on his forehead stinging, the raw wound of betrayal far deeper than any physical pain. The stolen bag felt like a gaping hole in his existence, not because of its paltry contents, but because it held the wooden box, the repository of a lifetime's worth of etched memories and undeniable courage. Just as despair began to settle heavy in the air, a distant, rhythmic flicker of blue and red lights pierced the gathering gloom. A police patrol car cruised slowly down the street, its siren mercifully silent, but its flashing emergency lights catching the eye of the dispersing crowd. The young officer behind the wheel, his gaze sharp and trained, spotted the unusual cluster of people lingering near the park bench, their bodies angled as if trying to simultaneously watch and pretend they weren't witnessing anything. He instinctively slowed, his internal alarm bells ringing. As the patrol car pulled to a stop, the effect on the bystanders was immediate and profound. Like startled birds, the small crowd that had lingered, some still holding their phones, scattered. They melted away into the flow of commuters, their faces suddenly blank, their expressions feigning ignorance as if they had never seen anything amiss, as if no old man lay bleeding on the pavement. The silence they left behind was deafening, a damning testament to their collective apathy. The young officer, Officer Davis, quickly exited his vehicle. He was lean and focused, his uniform crisp in the fading light. He approached James with caution, his eyes taking in the scene. The overturned bench, the discarded cane, and the still, crumpled figure of the old man. "Sir, are you all right?" Officer Davis asked, his voice firm but laced with genuine concern. He knelt beside James, his hand gently reaching out to offer assistance. He helped the old man slowly, carefully, to a sitting position on the ground, then to his feet, supporting him as James swayed unsteadily. James, still dazed and shaken, could only manage a whisper, his voice hoarse with pain and indignation. He took my bag." His eyes, clouded by the trauma, tried to convey the desperate urgency of his loss. "In there are my medals." The officer's eyes instinctively flickered to the old man's worn canvas hat. It was a simple, unassuming cap, but on its faded brim, barely visible in the dim light, he now noticed the small, tarnished glint of a U.S. Army veteran pin. Below it, faint but distinct, were embroidered letters, U.S. Army Veteran. A wave of profound understanding, mixed with a sharp pang of regret, washed over Officer Davis. The man before him wasn't just another victim. He was one of the nation's guardians, a living piece of history. His voice softened, a tone of deep respect entering his query. "Sir, are you a veteran?" he asked, his gaze settling on James's face with new reverence. "Where did you serve, if you don't mind me asking?" James, still weak but sensing a flicker of empathy, nodded. He slowly raised his hand, pointing to an old, faded scar on his left wrist. It was a jagged line, a silent, eloquent testament to a past lived amidst the brutal realities of combat. A physical map of a battlefield survived. It was the indelible mark of a warrior, a silent scream of valor from the fierce, unforgiving battlegrounds where the U.S. Army had clashed with its enemies. The subtle tremor in his hand, the depth in his eyes, all spoke of horrors witnessed and courage unwavering. As Officer Davis listened, a crucial piece of information clicked into place. While the human witnesses had failed, the city's unseen eyes had not. The precinct's dispatch had already alerted him that the area was covered by city surveillance cameras. Every chilling detail of the incident, the thief's predatory approach, the brutal kick, James's helpless fall, and crucially, the cold, indifferent reaction of the crowd had been recorded. The truth, in stark, unblinking pixels, was already preserved. Officer Davis swiftly relayed the description of the thief and the stolen bag to dispatch, emphasizing the stolen military honors. Thanks to the immediate activation of the city's extensive camera network, the thief's escape route was quickly tracked. Just 3 blocks away, near the bus terminal, a patrol unit was able to intercept and apprehend the tattooed young man. Miraculously, the canvas bag was recovered, its contents intact, including the precious wooden box of medals. Within minutes, Officer Davis was back, holding the recovered bag. He approached James Carter, his face etched with a mix of relief and a lingering sorrow for what the veteran had endured. He carefully extracted the small, dark wooden box, handling it with extreme delicacy, as if it contained fragile glass, not solid metal. With a steady hand, he placed the box back into James's trembling grasp. "Sir," Officer Davis said, his voice thick with emotion, his eyes meeting James's, "I am so incredibly sorry for what happened to you. We as a society owe you far more than just an apology." His words were not just a police officer's formal statement. They were a young man's heartfelt acknowledgement of a profound debt owed to a hero. James Carter gently opened the wooden box. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, lay the medals. Their bronze hues were muted by age, their ribbons slightly frayed, but in his eyes, they gleamed with the brilliance of every sacrifice they represented. He didn't cry. There were no tears, no dramatic outpouring of emotion. He simply gazed at them, his eyes, still slightly clouded by the recent trauma, holding a profound depth of memory and quiet pride. His finger, gnarled and scarred, reached out, lightly tracing the cold, raised star of one particular medal. Then his gaze slowly lifted, passing over Officer Davis, over the squad car, coming to rest on the American flag unfurling proudly from the pole directly in front of the police station, its red, white, and blue swaying gently in the evening breeze. He watched it for a long moment, a silent communion between a flag and the man who had fought for it. Then, a faint, almost imperceptible nod. It was a gesture of quiet acceptance, of enduring resilience. He gently closed the box, clutching it to his chest, and turned, his gait still favoring his injured side, and slowly began to walk away from the police station, back into the gathering dusk. After James Carter quietly walked away, disappearing into the Chicago twilight with his recovered medals, Officer Davis felt a deep, unsettling tremor in his soul. The old man's stoic dignity, combined with the raw, undeniable evidence of public apathy and blatant prejudice, weighed heavily on him. He knew what he had witnessed on the street, and what the city's cameras had captured, was more than just a robbery. It was a symptom of a far deeper malaise. He walked back inside the precinct, his mind racing. He immediately requested the full surveillance footage of the incident. As he reviewed the video, a cold fury began to simmer within him. He watched the thief's casual brutality, But what truly churned his stomach was the chilling indifference of the bystanders. He saw their faces, some curious, some even smirking, as they pulled out their phones not to call for help, but to record. He heard the muffled comments, the casual dismissals, the insidious whispers of prejudice. Just a black guy. Why bother helping? It was a stark, horrifying tableau of societal decay. This wasn't just about a stolen bag. It was about a stolen piece of humanity, a betrayal of the values James Carter had fought to protect. Officer Davis knew he couldn't let this simply become another police report. This footage, this story needed to be seen. It needed to ignite a conversation, a painful but necessary reckoning. He carefully edited the video, focusing on the theft, James's fall, and the crowd's reaction, ensuring it showed the brutal reality without sensationalizing it. Then, he drafted a post for the department's official social media channels. His fingers flew across the keyboard, driven by a profound sense of duty that extended beyond simply enforcing the law. The post was titled, "Vigilance Against Crime, Compassion for All, a Call to Humanity." Beneath the title, he wrote, "This evening, on street name in Chicago, a theft occurred. While we are relieved to report the swift apprehension of the suspect and the recovery of stolen property, this incident exposed something far more disturbing. The attached video shows not just a crime, but a troubling display of public indifference and, frankly, inexcusable prejudice. An elderly man, a decorated veteran, was violently assaulted, and instead of immediate aid, he was met with casual observation and racist remarks. This is unacceptable. Every citizen, regardless of their background, deserves protection and compassion. Our black citizens, who have historically sacrificed so much for this nation, are an integral part of its fabric. We urge everyone to remember their responsibility to each other, to condemn prejudice, and to always lend a helping hand. Let this be a stark reminder that empathy is as vital as vigilance." He ended the post with the police department's commitment to protecting all citizens and a solemn call for community action. The video, raw and unflinching, paired with Officer Davis's powerful, emotionally charged message, spread like wildfire. It wasn't just shared. It went viral. Within hours, it had amassed millions of views across various platforms. The comments section exploded, a maelstrom of shock, outrage, and dawning shame. People who had initially laughed or dismissed the incident were now confronted with their own reflection in the mirror of the internet. As the story gained traction, news outlets picked it up. Soon, the faded pin and the name James Carter were no longer obscure. Social media detectives and military history enthusiasts quickly identified him. News anchors with hushed reverence began to report on Lieutenant General James Carter, a national hero renowned for his legendary combat exploits, his bravery in pivotal battles, and his unwavering dedication that spanned decades. Images of a younger, formidable James Carter in crisp uniform, sometimes alongside revered figures, began to circulate, juxtaposed against the heartbreaking footage of him lying helpless on the street. The public's initial outrage at the theft quickly transformed into a fierce, protective solidarity for James Carter, and a scathing condemnation of those who had stood by. The individuals captured on video laughing, pointing, and making racist remarks were swiftly identified. Their faces, once anonymous in the crowd, were now splashed across the internet, instantly recognizable symbols of shame. The backlash was immense and unrelenting. Under the crushing weight of public scorn, these individuals, their lives suddenly unraveling under the microscope of collective judgment, were forced to issue public apologies. Their carefully crafted excuses fell flat, drowned out by the roar of a society demanding accountability. They learned, in the most brutal way possible, that their casual contempt for others could no longer be hidden in the anonymity of a crowd. For James Carter, life would never quite be the same. The quiet corner of the park bench, once a refuge, now became a place where people paused to offer thanks, to shake his hand, to apologize for the collective oversight. He received letters, calls, and visits, not just from fellow veterans, but from ordinary citizens profoundly touched by his story. His quiet dignity had awakened a nation, forcing it to confront its own blind spots. The prejudice he had endured his entire life, the casual disregard that had often felt like an invisible wound, was finally brought into the light, challenged by the very public that had once overlooked him. He, a silent sentinel for so long, had become a powerful symbol, a living testament to the enduring cost of freedom and the ultimate triumph of honor. The world had finally seen James Carter, and in doing so had seen a part of itself it desperately needed to remember. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any thoughts or opinions about this story, feel free to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel to support us. Your support means the world. Thank you again.